Hello, data structured students. The purpose of this video is to provide you with a brief introduction to Visual Studio Code, or for those of you who have already worked with Visual Studio Code, perhaps a bit of a refresher. As you can see, I actually have two versions of Visual Studio Code running right now. The one on the left is for the Mac, the one on the right is for Windows. The two are virtually identical, and therefore for the remainder of this presentation, I'm going to concentrate on my favorite operating system, and I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code for the Mac. But again, what I show you here is going to be exactly the same on Windows. When you first launch Visual Studio Code, you will see a window that appears as shown here. There are some commands that you can execute, keep track of recent projects, and there are some walkthroughs. And I highly recommend learn the fundamentals. We're going to be using this IDE a lot, and Visual Studio Code is wildly popular among developers. So you should get familiar with it. Don't confuse it, by the way, with Visual Studio, which is this enormous IDE from Microsoft as well. Visual Studio Code is a much lighter system. The way that Visual Studio Code works is it has some basic built-in functionality, but most of the functionality comes from extensions. And on the left-hand side here, we have what is called the action bar. And so we have something here called Explorer, you have Search. Each one of these opens up a sidebar where you can do more stuff. So for instance, if you open an Explorer, it will show you, if you had a project open, it would show you the project contents here. To begin doing Java development, you have to get an extension. Extensions are how you add functionality to Visual Studio Code. And if you click here, you can discover an enormous ecosystem of extensions. The one we want is for Java, of course. Sorry, I didn't mean to be shouting with a caps lock on. It'll work just the same. And in particular, you will want the extension pack for Java. So if you're working in the lab, this is already installed for you, I believe. If not, you can just go ahead and click here, and then there would be a button here that would say install, and it just takes a few seconds to install. Once you have that extension installed, when you go back to the Explorer sidebar, you can click on Create Java Project to create a project. There is another way of doing that. If you press F1, you bring up what is called the command palette. And these are all the commands that you can perform in Visual Studio Code for all the different extensions. Now, there's so many of them. It helps if you start typing to sort of narrow it down. So, of course, I start with Java, and right here at the top, because I've used this recently, is Create Java Project. And I could just click on that, or I could click on this button here. Either way, it asks me for the project type. I want no build tools. And then I have to decide where to store it. I'm going to just store it on the desktop, and then I give a name to it, CS271 demo. That sounds good. And it creates a project. It now opens up the Explorer sidebar, and in the sidebar I see there's a folder here called source, and this is where all your source code is going to live. So here's main. If I want to run this program, I can, if I'm looking for a lot of work, click on Run and Debug, and click on this, and it goes ahead and runs and says hello world. If I want to do the same thing with less effort, I can simply press F5. So if I'm pressing F5 right now, it goes ahead and runs it again. I can clear the terminal if I need to. And in order to see the terminal, there are all sorts of different views. And most of the commands that I'm talking about with keystrokes, you can also find menu commands as well. All right. In this course, we are going to be doing a lot of debugging, so we should talk about how to do debugging. And to do that, I'm going to bring in a couple of packages. And so I'm just going to drag them from off screen here, and I'm going to let them go. I want to make sure that I have source highlighted, and it just copied over two folders called DSAJ and net. And if I open them up, you will see that there are a whole slew of classes here. And each one of these classes, so this is in a folder called net, and it's actually nested, net data structures. So that means that each one of these files is in the net.datastructures package. If I click here, and if I look down after I read over the comments, we can see that the package is indeed net.datastructures. So you will recall how packages work. Packages are a way of grouping related files into one location. You put them in one folder, and at the top of the file, you say package followed by the name of that folder. So for instance, this in the source folder, and again, everything has to happen in SRC, I'm going to make a folder called CS271. So I am creating a place where I can store the CS271 package files. And then with that highlighted, if I click here, this is the new file. And I'm just going to call this hello with a capital H because it's a class.java. And there it is. And Visual Studio Code was polite enough to actually write the word package CS271 here at the top. So this class is now properly in that package. And if I wanted to do something here, public void say hello. This is really not going to win any awards, but so I can now go back into app.java. Now, because that was in a different package, of course, I have to import it. So I will do that here. Now I can either import just that single class, or I could say star if I wanted to bring in all of the files of that class. And right after this, I'm going to say, I'm going to make a hello object. Hello, howdy equals new hello, and howdy dot say hello. And there we have it. So I'm going to comment out this line and run it, and it says hello. So it executed that. And so we've seen how to we've seen a couple of things. One, how to drag a package into your project, and two, how to create your own package. The last thing that I want to talk about, actually there are a lot of things I want to talk about. One thing to note is that if you have a class, if you have a couple of files open here, you can arrange them so you can see several of them at the same time. So if I just start dragging like app.java over here, it will appear to the right. I can also instead drag it down here, and now it appears beneath, and you can do this with whatever files you have. For example, let me look in DSAJ arrays. I'm interested in looking at the insertion sort. I'm going to click, oops, wrong one. I don't want the class, because that's actually the Java bytecode. I want insertion sort.java, there we go. And I'm going to now put this over, I don't know, I think I'll put this here. I'll put this here. And now I'm going to get rid of hello.java for a moment and app.java. Insertion sort is a class that supports a type of sort, unsurprisingly called insertion sort, and it actually has its own main method. So I can go ahead and run this right now. Because this file is open, when I press F5, it will execute it. As you can see, what it's done is taken an array and sorted it. So now what I would like to demonstrate, the last thing I want to show here is the power of the debugger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a breakpoint here on line 44, and I'm going to hit F5 again. F5, by the way, stands for start debugging. You can also do Control F5 to run the program without debugging, so the breakpoints would have no effect. But I want to debug, so F5 it is, and it stops at this line. When it does so, it opens up the debugging sidebar right here. And so this is actually the run and debug sidebar. And it has several sections. It has the call stack showing what method is being called by and how it was called. It has a set of variables, local variables that you can open up to see what their contents are. So for example, I'm inspecting the A array here. And it has a watch window where you can add variables, expressions, method calls, and the like, and they will execute here in real time. Meanwhile, over here on the right, we have some sort of a palette. This is probably quite familiar to you. This means continue running the full program at full speed. This means step over the current line. So if I press this, it would skip over insert sort. It would do it, but it wouldn't go into the method. So as you can see, it just did the sort at this point. And if I click on this one more time, I see the output. If I run it again, and this time I click on step into, now I'm going to go into the insert sort method. So here I am in the insert sort method, a static method in the insertion sort class. And you notice I have a local variable called data because that was the parameter. And then when I click on and execute the next line, now the variable n pops into existence. And now the variable k pops into existence. As soon as it reaches a point where it can see the variable, it will display it here in the variables pane. Now, suppose I'm in the middle of this and doing hard work. Not quite sure what's going on here, but okay, so let's say we're here. And I wanted to look at parts of my data. So I might want to look at I, which it doesn't see because I doesn't exist. I will now demonstrate how to delete from the watch window, clicking on X. Let's try J. There we go, there's J. If for some reason I needed to, I could execute and view J minus 1. I could also view data of J minus 1. So this is giving me a window into the program. Not only can I look at the value of variables, I can calculate things on the basis of them. So it's pretty amazing. If I had a string here, I could be calculating string methods. I don't think this would work. I'm going to just try this. Hello.char@0. Oh, look at that. So you can even if you had just like a constant a literal that you just created, you can go ahead and execute methods here. So there's all sorts of things that you can do in this watch window. The most important thing though is to just walk through your data. And if you've got a problem, you will be able to see what the values of your variables are. And feel free, if you need to know what data j minus 1 is and data j, and if you even want to be able to see if data j is, say, equal to, I don't know why you'd need to do this, but perhaps in context with the problem you're trying to solve, maybe you want to see if this is equal to this. This is, of course, Boolean, and it tells me that data j equals data j plus 1 is true. Is that a fact? I find that difficult to believe. In any event, I'm sure it's right. It's Microsoft. They never make a mistake. Because data j, it's not going to tell me what data j is. Oh well. We'll just, and now it's false. Probably because of what we just executed here. Yeah, because they were copying things over, and I think for a time the two actually were equal. Anyways, the watch window gives you a view into the program. Very, very powerful stuff. One other thing that I want to note, you can set what are called conditional breakpoints. Not sure if I remember how to do it. Oh, yes, I do. Well, actually, it's reminding me. I clicked here to create a breakpoint. Right-click and then choose Edit Breakpoint. And I can either choose an expression, a hit count, a log message, or wait for breakpoint. And I can set a condition. For example, I think this will work. No, I don't think so. There is a way of creating a conditional breakpoint. Oh, there it is. You just choose expression. Break when the expression evaluates to true. So for instance, let's suppose you've got a loop and j is going from 1 to 100, and you just want to stop it when it's equal to 94. You could say j equals 94, and it'll run at full speed until it hits that point. So often you will have a problem with or not often, I don't want to presume how good a coder you are. I often have problems that are only at a very specific case, and I don't want to have to walk through all the cases to get to it. And so you can use a conditional breakpoint to do that. Anyway, that pretty much finishes it for our discussion of how to use Visual Studio Code. We'll be using it in the lab on Friday. Thanks for watching, and remember, I've got office hours. Bye.